Hi and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Nyambura and this is 100 on Books. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books I finished in January of 2024. It was a slow reading month, so it's not a lot of books. So here we go. The first of the books I finished was Why Don't You Write My Eulogy Now So I Can Correct It? A Mother's Suggestions by Patricia Marx, which is illustrated by Rose Chast. I love Rose Chast's work. I read a previous book by her, which is I think called Why Don't You Talk About Something Pleasant? I'll put the book here. And this was just, as the title suggests, a series of suggestions by Patricia Marx's mom, where she like corrects people and knows what's good for you and all of those things. And it was just an interesting read. It was a great way to start off the reading. Yeah. The next book I finished was Take a Hike, which is the third in the Love Track series by Mimi Grace. This follows our main character who's featured in previous books, who through like sort of like random occurrence inherits a mountain resort, and she gets there and there's tension between her and the guy who thought he was going to be able to buy the mountain resort from the previous owner. Hijinks ensue, but of course sparks fly too, and yeah, it makes for an interesting little romance. I enjoyed it. The next book I finished was The List by Yomi Adegoke. This book was hot last year. It follows this woman as she contends with the possibility that her boyfriend, her fiance actually, might have been guilty of sexual harassment and so on after a list, hence the title, The List, is released on Twitter with a list of people men who have been accused of having engaged in various acts of harassment and so on. It was a very online book, and I don't think it's going to stay with me, but I read it. It was enjoyable for the most part. The next book I finished was Impossible People, a completely average recovery story by Julia Watts. This is a graphic memoir that chronicles Watts's journey to sobriety, some relapses and so on, and some of the ways in which she filled her life as she tried to, move away from drinking and what it meant for her and so on. It was just so thoroughly honest, and I enjoyed how she opened herself up to all of these, uncomfortable truths that come with changing one's life. I enjoyed it so much that I picked up another book by Watts, which I'm going to talk about in another video, in a Maktaba Maneno's video, because I haven't finished it yet. The next book I finished was Mexikid, a graphic memoir by Pedro Martin, which I had about on Lindy's channel, Lindy over at Lindy's Magpie Reads. I'm going to put a link to the video where she talks about this particular book below, and I really enjoyed it. Like, it follows this kid, a Mexikid, as in a kid who has Mexican roots, as they go to Mexico to pick up his granddad, who's going to come and start living with them, and he navigates his particular identity as a person who has two Mexican parents, who lives in the US, who straddles those two cultures and so on. It was a really interesting book, and I'm glad I came upon it. Thank you, Lindy. And then the next book I finished was You Could Make This Place Beautiful by Maggie Smith, which I was reminded about it by listening to an episode of This American Ex-Wife. I'm going to put a link below. But also because it was This American Ex-Wife that made me pick it up. But it had been a book that I'd seen on the internet before it came out, because the author Maggie Smith is a poet. So poet types and writer types generally were sharing, and you should follow me on Twitter. I think I only ever see bookish tweets. So anyway, Olive over at A Book Olive talked about how she has a very particular style. Yes, she's poetic, she does beautiful things with language and so on, but she also does this thing where she'll be like, I could tell you about nini nini, but I won't. Nini nini is something in Kiswahili. I could tell you about this and this, but I won't. And it's like, so why did you bring it up? I'm going to try and find that video where Olive talks about this, because it really resonated with me. It was like, why are you bringing it up if you don't want to talk about it? Like, no one asked you for any of this. And yeah, but for the most part, it was an interesting read. Then the next book I finished was The Blessed Girl by Angela McColwa. This is a book that's told in first person. That's from the perspective of a girl, a young woman. She's almost 30 actually, who is what in this part of the world we call a blessee. She has a blesser or two. A blesser is a man, usually older, who has some money and some resources, who gives you those things. So basically, maybe a thing that might resonate with other parts of the world is like a sugar baby. She's a sugar baby to multiple men, and this is how she uh, conducts her life and so on. And so she takes us through what shenanigans she gets up to as part of this life of being a blessee and so on. It was not the sort of book I've read before. Like, I don't think I've ever truly read anything from the perspective of a sugar baby. And it was just so entertaining. I enjoyed every moment of it. I finished it on the morning of my birthday. My birthday is on January 30th. And it was just such a nice way to start the day. Then the next book I finished was Things I've Withheld, essays by Kai Miller. Kai Miller is a fave of Joan Zoya. I'm going to post that link to her Instagram profile below because she has such great recommendations and she has such great taste. So we had dinner together sometime in December. Was it December? No, I don't even think it was. Sometime in the later half of 2023, and we talked about Kai Miller. And so I picked this up, but I didn't get around to reading it until January. But when I started listening and reading these essays, because I did this as a hybrid read, the essays I read by the author, I just could not stop listening. I could not stop reading because they're so good. The essays explore queerness, they explore blackness, they explore the immigrant condition, they explore race, and they're so good. Highly recommend. The last book I finished in January was How to Understand Israel in 60 Days or Less by Sarah Gideon. I'd seen this floating around the internet, and so I thought, why not? Especially because it's the perspective of an American Jew who's gone to Israel on a birthright trip. And I know, like, she tries to bring in nuance and so on, but it's very clear she came in with a very particular bias. And I say this as somebody who wants Palestine free in my lifetime, and you know, that just feels like such a lofty hope right now with a genocide going on there and all of that. But by the end of the book, I was just like, okay. I mean, I think I wanted her to say something, and she didn't really say something, TM, but you know, great gowns, beautiful drawings, or whatever. And that's it. That's all the books I read in January. Please tell me what books you read in January, or what books you read in January that you're bringing forward into February. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Please like, share, subscribe, and all the good things. Bye.